Hello, all. Welcome to the second episode of the Black, Green, Red podcast. I know I said it was going to be out every Monday, and at the time you're listening to this, it has come out on Tuesday. I apologize for that. I got a bit distracted. A lot of things went on, but that's besides the point. After this episode that is daily, the remainder episodes will be out on Monday. Continue coming out on Monday. So this is a one-time thing, but let's see. So, the first episode is more me, describing the BGR mission. People haven't heard it yet and the purpose of this podcast. So this is actually really the first actual episode, which is why I described it as such. So let's just first get on with some, personal news. So I was reading the comments on the Charlie Kirk video, a couple of my other videos. First of all, I really appreciate the support you guys gave on all my content, but especially those videos did a lot better than I thought they would. But so I've realized I am officially Unk because people, or one comment in particular, I think it said something along the lines of, damn, Unk did a face reveal. And I don't know, I call myself Unk, my little sister calls me Unk. So I'm used to it, but it's just funny thinking about it, right? Because other comments as well have said that, Dean Withers, the leftist I criticized a little bit in the Charlie Kirk video, they describe him as a kid. And it's just funny to me, me getting called Unk and him getting described as a kid when we're really only 3 years apart, believe it or not. If you look at the way how old I look, we are only 3 years apart. He's the same age as my younger brother, who we get mistaken as twins. So I'm not that old. I'm 3 years older than Dean. I am 10 years younger than Hassan Piker, and I'm the same age as Kai Cenat. So getting called Unk is a little bit hilarious when Kai Cenat and Dean get called kid and young men and things like that. But that's how that was a little bit funny. But I don't really got any other personal news going on. Some things I can't share at the moment, but I'm excited for when it finally comes through. But yeah, that's all it is on my end. Like I said in my first episode, I'm not that interesting, really. I'm just a guy. I think what I have to say is a bit more interesting than who I am as a person. But so let's get with some actual BGR news. What's new with the Black, Green, Red channel? So if I can get it done, which I'm hoping, there will be a long video, I guess you can call it a video essay, out this week. I'm looking at Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, but I want it to be out this week. If not, it'll be Monday. It's going to be regarding left unity as like a follow-up to a lot of my previous videos, particularly the Charlie Kirk one. And yeah, along with that long video, I want to get another video essay out this month, which will be the climate one, which I worked on and then I stopped working on because I don't know, the way it was turning out was a little, I don't know. I have to go back and change it a little bit. Something you'll find about me is I like to change a lot of things. The first Black Panther video essay script I wrote is damn near completely different to the one I ended up releasing. So that's just the way I am. I'm low-key a perfectionist, which is why I'm trying to find the big medium, but the middle ground between releasing content as quickly as you can and trying to perfect it every little bit as you can. Which is why I gave myself the 2-week deadline. But in reality, I'm not going to give myself a deadline for the longer videos. They'll come out when they come out. But the podcast will be every week. Sip of water real quick. And after the green video comes out, after this next video, we'll go down the long list of topic suggestions we got. So, yeah. All right. So, today's news. So, I found out, I think it was about yesterday I'm not entirely sure about the exact date, but there was a lynching in Mississippi. So I'll just like to say rest in peace to the young Trey Reed. I'm calling it a lynching. He's a 21-year-old college student that was found hanging from a tree at Delta University. And from what I've read, they said there is no foul play suspected, which I think is complete bullshit. And we need to I'm already glad to see the reactions pushing against this. No, stop it. And I think it's a little bit crazy, right? That we can all, regardless of our political affiliation or whatever, we, for the most part, all universally acknowledge that Epstein didn't kill himself and did not hang himself. But to this day, in big 2025, Black people can be found hanging from fucking trees, and people still think it could be suicide. So it's easier to believe that Epstein didn't kill himself, but you see a black kid hanging from a tree, and you're like, oh, you know what? He probably did it to himself. It's fucking insane. But it's just another chapter of the anti-black racism and anti-black violence that's conveniently occurring, after the death of America's favorite racist. There's been threats to HBCUs, and people have been blaming black people and targeting black people before pictures of the shooter came out, and even after pictures of the shooter came out, when it showed that he has no affiliation with black people whatsoever. So, and the part that really aggravates me about this the most, I would have to say, is when I stress the importance of having, black organizations, like black socialist, Marxist associated organizations. A lot of particularly speaking in my Black Panther video, a lot of white leftists actually got upset with me. They think that that's just pushing the racial divide and, alienating white people. And I think to have that mentality is just wrong, and it's stupid, and it's like ignoring reality. Because my point, right? My entire point is not that I don't think race should be an important factor. It shouldn't be. No shit, it shouldn't be. Like, it's stupid that people look at the color of other people's skin and judge off of that. No shit. Most of us can acknowledge that is stupid. But what I don't like is that most of us can't acknowledge that it is a thing. It's not a thing we can just snap our fingers and get rid of, or just act like it doesn't exist and it'll just suddenly go away. No, it is a thing that will not go away by itself. So the best we can do is make measures to account for those things instead of ignoring it and pretending it doesn't exist. So I think a good way of acknowledging the diversity and the racial issues we have in this country is to have organizations dedicated to reaching out to those marginalized racial identities. So I don't think it should just be a Black Panther Party. I would love to see a new similar organization for Latinos or for Asian people and for all marginalized groups, really. And the only people that seem to have a problem with that just so happen to be the people that aren't in marginalized groups, which is not a coincidence. So, no, I stand on what I said. If a new Black Panther organization comes out today, it should be black, and it does the very important job of organizing black people and gravitating towards black people, something which I will always state leftists do a shitty job at. They do a shitty job at that. I mean, like, statistically speaking, right, I can't give Bernie too much shit because they say, black people don't like Bernie, which I think is funny for a liberal to say because we clearly don't like Pete Buttigieg. We like Pete Buttigieg even less. I think one poll he had literally said 0% of black people. But the issue with any leftist is going to have with black people is that I think the black liberals tend to be more moderate than white liberals, and older black people are more moderate than other black people in general. So, like, when you see a lot of these black liberals that are like big Biden supporters and just big Democrat supporters in general, it's the older people. It's the older black people in the community, which is a whole conversation for another time. Let's see what else happened. The governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, she finally did her job as the most powerful Democrat in the state and endorsed Zoran. As far as I know, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer haven't, and they never will. I don't know why people are still like, look, they're not doing it. They're not gonna do it. I don't know why the fuck we think we like some of us still think it's gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Do you guys see how much? I didn't even know you could legally get that much money from AIPAC when you look at how much money those two have received. It's actually insane. They will never advocate for somebody that's even like a hint against Israel. He says he's gonna arrest Netanyahu. They're not gonna endorse him. That's not happening. So let's stop pretending like it will and wondering when it's gonna happen. It's not happening. But I don't know. The fact that Democrats like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries or AIPAC Shakur has the ability to hold this much power is part of the reason, which admittedly is pessimistic, that I view that the party cannot be reformed. Because how do you reform something like a party like this when people like that are allowed to hold this much power, But in regards to Zoran, you guys have probably seen my first video about him my first video was about him, and I showed how much I was very optimistic about his campaign. And at this point, I am still optimistic. There's a bit more cautiously optimistic than I was when I made the video. I still like the vibe, the charisma, his personality. I still think the policies he's pushing for would greatly benefit the lives of, working class New Yorkers. And I am a firm believer that anything that improves the conditions of the average working class American should be supported by anybody who's an American leftist. I think it's just pretty simple and logical. And, of course, though, when people say things like this, a lot of the pushback comes from Marxists, because from my personal experience, a lot of self-identified Marxists are far more concerned with being right and their ideology being correct than actually helping people, which I think is a very big problem, and why a majority of the criticism we make about the left is completely accurate, because, my very niche subcategory of pineapple socialism is the only correct path we must take, and anything else outside of that is wrong, and I won't support it, and it's stupid and doesn't affect anything. And ironically enough, this makes some people on some Marxists actually more snobbish and out of touch than the same liberals who I criticize and have pushed me to become further left. So I think if the left is serious about winning anything, we got to start criticizing these people and not allowing them to have as large platforms and they shouldn't be representing any part of the actual movement, in my personal opinion. Sorry. Our third bit of the news today, we got a Luigi update. So the judge tossed out the terrorist charge, which was the most severe charge he had in his entire case. I got a quote from the article I was reading about it. I think it's it's a direct quote from the judge, what the judge wrote. While the defendant was clearly expressing an animus towards United Healthcare and the healthcare industry generally, it does not follow that his goal was to intimidate and coerce a civilian population. And indeed, there was no evidence presented of such a goal. And that's what he wrote in his decision that was issued this morning, actually. So, and I mean, it's true. And I said the same thing when I saw they were charging him with terrorism in the first place, because that's kind of crazy, because nothing he did intimidated a civilian population or coerced a civilian population. If anything, it united a civilian population, actually, which is probably why they tried charging him with it. Because, a lot of people universally love Luigi, regardless of their party affiliation or anything like that. But I'm glad the judge, I think this is a good decision. Not even my own biased beliefs or whatever. I don't think what he did I don't think what he allegedly did can be considered to be an act of terrorism. Because come on, man, really? But then seeing that led to a lot of people asking questions, which I've been seeing for a few days now. Why is it that some people universally love Luigi, but the Charlie Kirk shooter is not getting anywhere near this amount of universal praise and liking? And I think it's because CEOs are a universal enemy that all people can rally behind. They're especially a healthcare CEO in this country, because I think most Americans are ready to fully embrace a us versus them, top versus bottom type of dynamic. Everybody's sick of the left versus right, which I'm going to address a little bit later. But so popping a CEO, what we all universally have our. I'm trying to find a way of how I want to phrase. I'm trying to find a way to phrase this. No, I think I phrased it correctly earlier. A CEO is not a working class person. It's not someone that represents us. It's somebody that represents the same companies that is oppressing us and exploiting our labor. So obviously one of them dying is not going to be that much of a thing that's going to make that many people angry. And a proof of this, right? You see a lot less people saying, "Oh my God, a human being got killed" when the CEO got killed versus when Charlie Kirk did, because what Luigi is accused of doing is a top versus bottom thing, but what people have associated what happened to Charlie Kirk as is a left versus right thing, even though the shooter's right and the victim's also right. So, which then brings us to the whole main topic I wanted to discuss mostly in this episode. I hate the whole it's not left versus right conversations that have been going on lately. And part of the reason why I hate it is because a lot of people seem to be getting it completely wrong. Obviously I agree, bro. I agree. I've criticized both parties on multiple occasions. And, I believe political divides in America are certainly made to prevent Americans of all beliefs and demographics from embracing class consciousness and acknowledging the true enemy. What I don't like about these conversations is that right-wing Americans refuse to accept that it's their side and their commentators that are also actively promoting the left versus right rhetoric. I would actually say that they're promoting the left versus right rhetoric more than literally any other person doing it. When Charlie Kirk first got shot, Trump literally made an AI-generated video and universally blamed the left for the shooting without any evidence. They're all now actively still blaming the left for the shooting. Are you going to sit here and tell me that's not a left versus right talking point being pushed right now? Like, and I don't know. If you truly don't like the left versus right rhetoric being pushed, it's, you know, it's the class war and it's us versus them, then why did you support Charlie Kirk in the first place? What do you think his content was about? You know, if you truly believe that it's a top versus down thing, then there's a lot of hypocritical or points that don't make any sense about the Republican base. Like, how do you rationalize supporting Trump and his loyalists regarding their stance on the Epstein list? How do you rationalize that if it's a top versus down type of thing? How do you rationalize the Republicans giving Israel the hard-earned money of Americans? How do you rationalize letting a billionaire who spent his entire life stomping down on working class people as the leader of your movement? So, like, once again, sure, I agree that the political divide in its essence is a distraction, but how are you going to complain about this distraction when you actively support it and are perpetuating it every day by supporting these people? And, you know, I also dislike the left versus right conversation because the left in question isn't even left. It's center right. Because, you know, when they say left versus right, you guys know they mean the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party. And while I don't think anyone's going to try to argue that the Republican Party isn't right wing, because come on now, but the Democratic Party is not left wing. Like, no, it's on the right of the wings. It's center right at this very moment. And the reason why I have to specify, you know, the party as like the establishment politicians in the Democratic Party is because we are now reaching a point where the Democratic base, who the establishment seems to clearly hate, they're becoming more left while the leadership just isn't doing so. I saw another article today or recently. Read the quote here. Shortly after Gallup released data showing Democrats and independents are cooling towards capitalism, a progressive organization is out with polling finding that more than half of likely Democratic voters prefer socialist-aligned figures like Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Zohran Mamdani to establishment politicians like Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and Nancy Pelosi. While obviously none of these leftist politicians in question are Marxist revolutionaries like some of you guys really want them to be, and they are actively destigmatizing socialism, whether you want to believe it or not. That's what's happening here. And this paves the way for actual Marxists to win either now or in the future. We just need to, you know, actually have the Marxists stop being stubborn and just run as Democrats. I will forever stand on that being the best path to getting Marxists in federal office, and honestly, even local office for the most part. Like, okay, for example, right? Look at how the establishment Democrats are treating Zohran Mamdani. Yes, they treat him with more contempt and hostility than Dems have ever treated any leftist third-party politician. Why do you think that is? Because since Zohran Mamdani is a Democratic Party candidate, he actually has a chance of winning, and that makes him a threat to the status quo. The Green Party and literally every other independent left party will never have a candidate or a campaign that is a serious threat to the status quo and can actually deliver a concrete, feelable victory to the working class people beyond a feel-good anti-capitalist messaging campaign. So, you know, despite me making a video where the core premise was saying the Democratic Party can't be reformed, that title could easily be changed to shouldn't be reformed, since I think the goal should still not be to reform this dying party, but should do anything you can to get into positions of power and positions of power and influence to like liberate and assist the working class. That should be the purpose, which is why I stand on the belief that it is easier for socialists to win as Democrats rather than Republicans or independents. Because like I showed earlier, Democratic Party voters are getting pushed further left. So why would we want to run away from this seemingly growing trend and run as independents when there is an avenue to win and radicalize people to be actual leftists by running through the party. And MAGA voters, right? The reason why some people always have asked me why don't I support socialists running under the Republican Party, because it's pretty simple, guys. MAGA voters are 10 toes down for their party, and they're not switching up on them at any point. So they're not switching up to the point where even if they have to back a pedophile president, they will do so, because that is how much blind loyalty they have to the party. A socialist is not winning under those conditions. But so I stand on my belief that I think that the best path of victory is to run as a Democrat. That's also why I said the only thing that could really make me turn on Zoran is if he starts endorsing establishment Dems, because my entire point is, right, you can run as a Democrat without actually trying to fix the party. And if Zoran, who is running as a Democrat, begins to start fixing the party by endorsing establishment Democrats to try to get them to try to regain support for the party, then yeah, I would have to turn on him at that point, because that would just go against my my entire point. This is also why I've stated that if the DSA were to run a presidential candidate in the Democratic primary in 2028, which they need to do, because I don't see any other reason for why they wouldn't, it makes the most sense to do, I will use BGR to personally campaign for them. You guys can clip this and make sure I keep my word. I will actively do it. And it's also the reason why, if I ever were to run for office, I would absolutely run as a Democrat, because being a Democrat on paper and being a leftist in policy is a winning combination. And I truly believe it is the best and only logical path forward for achieving change through electoralism. And now, obviously, I've already stated in multiple other videos that voting is not enough, but I've also stated in the same video that you can't expect the average American who we don't have enough voter turnout to expect the average person to do more than voting, So that's not the job for the American people to be on the streets organizing or whatever. That's your job. So if you're angry people using voting as the end all be all, then get your ass up and go on the streets and start organizing. Join an organization. There's a whole hell of a lot of left organizations you can be doing work with beyond elections. I think to complain about this and to do nothing is a choice and is just annoying at this point. Sorry. But anyway, I think I've yapped enough today. Let me just remind you guys some other projects I'm working on. Like I said, there'll be a long form video out later this week, hopefully. If not later this week, it'll be out on Monday. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Give you some suggestions on future episodes, some things you wish to talk a bit more about in this episode, things like that. And of course, a special shout out to all the paying subscribers on the BGR Patreon and Substack. You guys are the only reason why I can do this, and we're reaching a point where I'll be able to do this more often and make more content and have it out more, regularly. All of that is due to the support I receive on the Patreon and the Substack. So if you really like the BGR mission and you agree with it and you want to support it, the best way you can do that is on those two platforms. If you don't got it, which I understand, that's why I made a $1 tier if you just want to show your little bit of support. And if not, continue just liking, subscribing, and just letting me know what I can do better. And yeah, that's all I got to say today, guys. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of the podcast. The next episode will be out on Monday. And yeah, that's all. Peace.